Hello and welcome to a special interview for The Wire. As the crisis in Manipur continues, we speak to the women of the state. They're not just mothers, sisters, daughters, and wives. Much more importantly, they are 50% of the population. And if you want to try and understand what's happening in Manipur, and more importantly, how to rectify the crisis, then their voice is essential to hear. Today we present the first of a two-part series. Joining me today is the convener of the Kuki Women's Forum, Dr. Mary Grace Zoe. Dr. Zoe, you're in touch with people in Manipur. Let me start by asking you, how would you describe the situation facing the Kuki people today?
Yes, sir. I've been very much in touch with the people in Manipur because this is something of our concern also. Though we are living 2,000 miles away from Manipur, we are really concerned like what is happening back home in Manipur. And then the other thing is that the people I know have been spending sleepless nights, and at the same time they have not been taking proper food. And I can say that the people are barely surviving and not living because there's no more life without internet and intermittent supply of electricity and no education. The daily wages, they are not able to get work. And most importantly is that the prices of essential items have skyrocketed. And so overall, the situation is very grim. The situation in Manipur is very grim.
You said the people are barely surviving.
Yes,
You
sir.
really mean that?
Yes, sir. Because you just imagine like the price of the gas cylinders, which are very important, essential for a mother to prepare the food, it's become double the price.
I'll pick up on many of the things you've said.
Yes, sir.
But let me first put this to you. Newspaper reports suggest that there are no Kuki in the Imphal Valley, there are no Meitei in the hills. So A, is that true? And B, if it is, does that mean demographic separation has already happened in Manipur?
Yes, it's very true. It's very much true because there's a total separation between the valley and the hills. And if I just recall back the time when the violence started on the 3rd of May, it started in the Imphal Valley where the ethnic cleansing of the Kukis have started, and they didn't go on their own, they've been chased away. And I can say that like those people who have been displaced from Imphal Valley are the lucky ones, the lucky survivors who have been sheltered in army camps. So in this regard, I would really like to thank the Indian Army. They are the only survivors who have been rescued by the Indian Army.
You're saying?
Otherwise, I can just quote what Mr. Hang Singh has said in his interview with you, that the Meitei militants, the state-sponsored militants are like wolves. The mob are like wolves. And I'll just quote another interview which Bungjangin Valte's wife with the East Mojo has said that they are like animals.
Let's come to some of the things you said about the condition in which the people are surviving today. As you said, they're barely surviving. Schools have been shut for 6 weeks, and who knows when children will go to school again because no one knows when schools will reopen. How much impact is this having on the education of children, which is the future of the state?
Exactly, Karan. This is something which is really worrying me as a mother. I think we are going to lose one generation because there's no school, the internet has been shut, no online classes. And the saddest part is that despite the Chief Minister's concern, when he conveniently say that he is concerned about the youths of Manipur, where is his concern now? Because this war which has been declared by the Chief Minister against the Kukis, or the pre-planned ethnic cleansing or genocide of the Kukis, have led to the youths holding guns instead of books.
But you're saying that one generation of children will actually lose their education completely. That's your fear.
Yes, we have just recovered from COVID. We have just recovered from COVID. Children have not had their classes. They had not had their schooling because of COVID, and their children have just recovered.
What about the elderly who could fall sick, who may need doctors, who may need hospitalization? Do those facilities for the elderly still exist? Do they function?
It functions, but one thing you have to know is that like most of the multi-speciality hospitals are located in Imphal Valley. So in most of the districts, we don't have such multi-speciality hospitals. There are district hospitals, some private clinics, private hospitals, but they don't have multi-specialist. And most of the multi-specialists, they come either from Imphal, not on daily basis, and come and even attend all these private hospitals.
So people who need multi-special care either have to go to Imphal, and that would be at risk to their lives, or they don't get that care.
Exactly, sir. One thing is that you can't help it because you cannot go to Imphal now. The moment you go there, you will not get that. Instead of getting treatment, you will be lynched by the mob.
So the elderly, if they need treatment, have to go without it.
So either like this, one choice is that they have to go to Mizoram and then fly from there and go to the metropolitan cities like Kolkata, Delhi, or any place. That's the only route.
Now, women are not just individuals. They're also mothers, they're also wives. They run the home. How difficult is it for them to buy essential food items in this situation? You were mentioning cooking gas prices having doubled. How easy or difficult is it to run a home, to feed your children, to feed your husband?
That's true, sir. Like, that's true, especially for people like who are running their house through daily wage. There's no business. The markets are shut for like 3 days in a week. It's only open for 3 days shut for 4 days in a week and open for 3 days. So I can hardly think. That's the reason why I said like they're barely surviving. I don't know even how to explain them. And the only way is that there are some CSOs, there are some churches.
CSOs are community service organizations.
Yes, civil society organizations. And in these, I'll just add one point that like we are really grateful to our neighbor states like Nagaland and Mizoram. They've been sending relief materials in terms of food, in terms of medicines. So I'd like to thank them for that.
If I understand you correctly, you're saying that the Kuki people in the hills are surviving because of assistance and aid that comes either from Mizoram or Nagaland, or because of assistance and aid given by CSOs.
Yes,
but there is nothing coming from the Imphal Valley to the Kuki areas to help them.
Not at all, sir.
You mean not at all?
Yeah, not at all.
Nothing?
Nothing.
So in other words, there's not only demographic separation, there's effective cutting off of services and trade and business as well.
It's totally cut off. It's totally cut off.
Last week, your organization, the Kuki Women's Forum, protested outside the residence of the Home Minister, Mr. Amit Shah. Newspaper reports say you weren't able to meet him, but you were able to give a memorandum to his office. What were the main demands in that memorandum?
The main demand, one of the main demand is that like that we have learned from reliable source that the Meitei officers are there in the Indian Army. So they have been helping these So that's one of the demand is that like there should be neutral officers, neither from the Kukis nor from the Meiteis, because they'll be acting now like a peace force.
I should point out to you that the army has officially said it is unfair and untrue to suggest that Meitei officers in the Indian army are acting against the interests of the Kuki. The army has officially denied that.
I think there are people who are on the ground and who have seen things. So these are all ground reports. The army will definitely say that because that's the oath the army has taken for that they'll fight for the Indian people. And we know that Kukis are also Indians, very much Indians, and that we at times really feel, I should say, bad, or like we don't like the words which are branded by the Meiteis or the chief minister saying that we are illegal immigrants, that we are poppy planters, we are forest encroachers, when we had a history of our forefathers fighting against the British in the Anglo-Kuki War.
But you're saying to me that Meitei officers in the Indian army are acting against the Kukis, that instead of treating the Kukis as fellow citizens, they are targeting them. That's what you're saying. That's why you don't want Meitei officers posted in the army in Manipur.
Yeah, those are ground reports. On the basis of the ground reports, then we have to put forward what are demands.
And this is one of them.
This is one of them.
What are the other demands?
The other demands are that we should, the Indian buffer zone should be created between the Kuki villages and the Meitei villages, Meitei areas.
And who will man the buffer zone?
Of course, by the Indian army.
The Indian army?
Yeah.
What about the Manipur police?
We don't trust the Manipur police. They have been there like all out helping the state-sponsored armed militants.
So
that's
the
the
buffer
Arambai
zone,
Tengol and the Meitei Lipun.
So the buffer zone has to be manned by the Indian army.
Yes.
Is there a third demand?
The third demand is that there should be action which should be initiated against the Meitei Lipun and the Arambai Tengol, because they say that they are so-called cultural organization, but the way they have taken up arms, they are like militants. They have been telling us that we are Kuki militants, but they are the real militants with sophisticated arms.
What sort of action do you want taken against them?
Whatever action, like according to the law of the land.
So the four demands, and I'm just repeating this for the audience, is A, remove all Meitei officers serving in the army in Manipur. Secondly, create a buffer zone between the Kuki and the Meitei manned by the army. Third, you do not trust the Manipur police. You don't want them operating in Kuki areas. And fourth, you want action taken against the Arambai Tengol and the Meitei Lipun.
Exactly.
What response did you get from the Home Minister? It's been a week since you handed the memorandum. What response have you got?
Till now, officially, we have not received any response as yet.
You say officially?
Officially, and on the ground also, we have been finding out whether there's anything like that, but I don't think like till now, like we have not confirmed whether it has been really implemented.
Has there been an unofficial response from the Home Minister?
That's what I'm saying, an official response in terms of the ground report, which we get from our people back home.
And nothing has been implemented?
Nothing has been implemented.
Which means that your memorandum up till now has been ignored?
It seems like that.
It's reported in the papers that the 11 Kukis who have been appointed to the 51-man or woman peace committee set up by the Home Minister under the governor have refused to participate on the grounds that they weren't consulted before they were appointed to this committee. Is that the real reason for not participating, or are there deeper reasons, deeper concerns that may not have been mentioned?
Yes, it's very true that they have not been consulted. At least I can confirm from at least one or two members, because I have confirmed from them because I saw, and I also saw a press release which was dated 12 June 2023. Today is, I don't remember exactly which is the date.
Today is the 15th.
Today is the 15th, but it was, there was a press statement, not a press release. So there's a press statement on the 12th of June, which was issued by the Core Committee on Separate Administration Movement.
But are there deeper reasons for not wanting to participate?
That's what I'm trying to just tell you about the press statement, where they have mentioned that this peace committee, the members like Corcom members, Corcom president, the chief minister, who are all the perpetrators of this premeditated crime or ethnic cleansing against the Kukis. So how can we be part of these perpetrators? How can we trust them?
You don't want to be part of a peace committee that includes those you consider perpetrators of genocide, one of whom, I take it, in your allegation, is Chief Minister Biren Singh.
Yes, it's very much true, because this is not my allegation. We are the voice for the people, voice for the voiceless. That's the reason why, like, we are. It's not my opinion or anything, but it's the voice of the people which says that Chief Minister N. Biren Singh is the perpetrator of the pre-planned or premeditated crime which is against the Kukis.
There's no doubt that Kuki organizations like Kuki Inpi and the Indigenous Tribal Leaders Forum have gone on record to say that they cannot be part of a committee in which Biren Singh is participating for the reason you said. Do you think, to facilitate negotiations and talk, Biren Singh should be removed as Chief Minister?
I think that's what the Kukis have been demanding. Why do we demand president rule? This is one of the reasons. And I really feel that Biren is not a responsible Chief Minister for which he has taken oath for. And I'm sorry to say that in this regard, I can say that the center is also to some extent responsible for having total faith and trust in Biren Singh's chief ministership or leadership, and that has led to this present mayhem.
So are you saying to the center, replace Biren, remove him as Chief Minister of Manipur, and the peace committee will start functioning and Kukis will be willing to talk about the problem? Is that what you're saying?
I think that my earlier statements are very clear about it, saying that the center has the total trust and faith in this leadership of Biren Singh.
And that's misplaced trust and that's misplaced faith.
Yeah, that's why, like, Biren has not only failed us, he has failed the center government also.
Which is why you're saying remove him as Chief Minister.
I am nobody to say, but I think these statements are clear enough to say that Biren, as a Chief Minister of Manipur, has failed the center government and has failed the people of Manipur, has failed the people of India. Because Manipur is also part of India.
Why do you think the central government, and I'm talking specifically about Prime Minister Modi and Home Minister Amit Shah, why do you think they have so much faith in Biren Singh? Why won't they listen to the voices of Kuki organizations like Kuki Inpi, like the Indigenous Tribal Leaders Forum, like your own organization, the Kuki Women's Forum? Why do they have faith in this man and why won't they listen to you? What do you think is the answer?
I really don't know what to say in this regard. But one thing is that we have not lost our hope in the center, because the center still have lots. They can do lots for us till now also.
Let's talk about the center. How do you assess the way the central government, and I'm talking primarily about Modi and Shah, the way they have handled the crisis in Manipur? What's your assessment?
One thing is that I Exactly. I'll just quote my earlier statement again, which I said like they have total faith and trust. That's one thing.
But you also said
And
it was misplaced faith and trust.
yeah, that trust has been misused, I should say, by brainwashing.
So then answer my question. How would you assess the handling of the crisis by Modi and Shah?
See, they have imposed Article 355, where the head of the state is still brainwashing. They have been saying that like they are, they are monitoring the security, where Mr. Kuldeep Singh has been there. But at the end of the day, like when you say like the chief minister, he's still have some say, have a say in the state of Manipur.
So you're unhappy with the way the central government is handling the crisis?
I know we always expected something which is more effective than this.
What do you make of the fact that for 25 days the Home Minister did not visit Manipur? He preferred to campaign in Karnataka. Almost 6 weeks to the day have passed since the crisis began on the 3rd of May, and not a single word has been spoken in public by the Prime Minister. What do you make of those two facts?
I really don't know what to comment on in this regard.
Are you disappointed?
Very much disappointed. It's very disheartening. As a citizen of India, that the kuki lives don't matter.
Does the Prime Minister's silence suggest kuki lives don't matter?
It seems like that. Because the center and the state has to act together.
Many people say it's perplexing that the might of the Indian state, the 5th biggest economy in the world, one of the most powerful armies in the world, the might of the Indian state has not been able to restore law and order in Manipur. And people sometimes say this is not just inexplicable, it raises suspicions. Certainly Mr. Iralu, a Naga, said to me, this raises serious suspicions about the central government. Do you as a Kuki share those doubts and suspicions?
I think everybody will have that suspicion.
Carry
But
on.
we
What
don't
is
know
the suspicion? Spell it out for me.
that why is the center not acting? Why is the center still believing in Biren Singh's leadership?
Do you think
What is the role of the double engine government? They've been telling that there's a double engine government.
Do you think the center wants the problem to continue? Is that why they're silent? Is that why they failed to restore law and order?
One thing I've been thinking about, and which I don't know how far I'm true, but then whatever happens in the state, the report is always prepared by the state government. It's not that the center directly goes and intervenes in the state. The report has to be prepared. And when that report is prepared, then a different report is given to the central government. And I don't think the central government can act against this report.
So you're
I think
suggesting
that's one reason, because I was just going through this the last hearing of the Supreme Court with regard to the demand of ST status by the Meiteis. There also, I think one of the judges said that like, what about the status of killings which are happening? Because the state never reported. So I think I fear that these are certain things which the state never reported.
But it's one thing for the state to not report or mislead the center when the crisis began. But 6 weeks have now passed. If the state is still trying to mislead the center, then it also suggests that the center has no good information of its own, that it can't double check, that it doesn't know what's happening. Because you can be misled in May, you can't carry on being misled in the middle of June.
That's true. That's the reason why now I've been told that there's an inquiry committee which has been led by some of the retired officers and all. I hope that once all these things come up and then
But the
give
inquiry
the
committee
information.
only makes sense after law and order is restored. At the moment, there are killings that are happening in Manipur practically every second day.
This is one thing why the women group have come up. This is one thing why the women group have to just go and rush in front of the home minister's residence and tell that our people are still killed, our people are still living in fear, our people are still losing lives, the attack is still on. We are not in offense, but we are always in defense
But
of
as
our
you
villages.
said, you got no official response from the Home Minister, and a whole week has gone by. And as you said, reports from the ground in Manipur suggest that your memorandum has been ignored. So let me ask you, are you beginning to lose faith and trust in Modi and Shah?
We may be, but then we still have to linger on.
You
We
have no
cannot
choice.
We have no choice, but still have faith, hope.
That's a very interesting answer. We may be losing faith in Modi and Shah, but we have no choice but to continue to hope.
That's the only way.
Let's look down the road. Do you believe, given everything that we've discussed, do you believe that the demand endorsed by all 10 Kuki MLAs for a separate administration is the only way of resolving the problem? Or can dialogue restore trust, even if it is long, slow, and tortuous?
One thing is that I think that this separate administration, this is very important. Why? Because the state, in the state itself, there's already demographic separation. But in spite of that, in spite of chasing away all the cookies in Imphal Valley, and they have been killed, they have been brutally killed. Not only killed, they have been brutally killed on their way to the army camps, running for their lives, to be sheltered in the army camps.
So that's my question. Is separate administration the only solution?
Yeah. How can you still rub shoulders with people who are trying to kill us, who are committing all heinous crimes? They don't even spare women, they don't spare children, they don't spare all people.
So there's no question of a dialogue to restore trust, to remain one united state. That's ruled out.
I am nobody to say that, I am nobody to rule it out, but I doubt about it.
In which case, if you doubt about it, what's the point of the peace committee the government has appointed?
That could be one point also, when I don't know, because the reason they have cited in their press statement regarding objection of this peace committee by this core committee on separate administration is one of that is that the perpetrators have been included in the peace committee.
Yeah, but what I'm saying to you is something else. If you believe that a separate administration is the only solution to the crisis in Manipur, and you're effectively ruling out talks that will re-establish trust so that Manipur can remain intact and united, then what's the point of a peace committee? It serves no purpose. You've already decided a separate administration is the only solution.
Karan, how can you talk about peace when there's still violence? Now, just yesterday, I have learned that, I don't know the exact date when Saikul was attacked. I've learned that earlier, they have not created the mob. Initially, they created the mob, and then in between, the mob, when I say the mob, when I say the Meiteis, when the first incident started on 3rd of May, it was a mob which was led by the state-sponsored armed militants, that's Arambai Tengol and the Meitei Lipun. And then they have, how do they incite the mob? I'll tell you, one thing is that disinformation, rampant disinformation, which has been spread by this.
Let's not go into the details of how they incite the mob. My object is not to inflame passion. My object is to work out from you whether there is an alternative to separate administration. You're saying to me there is not. Separate administration is the only solution.
That's the only thing, because like one thing you have to know is that separate administration, even these are all, I should say, political terms which has to be decided by the leaders or like the central government.
That's the character of separate
Yeah.
administration. Let me put this to you. Most people at the moment have forgotten that Manipur consists of 3 communities. It's not just Kuki and Meitei. There are also Nagas. Nagas are 24% of Manipur. Meiteis are 53%. Kukis are 16%. What is the state of relationship between the Kukis and the Nagas in Manipur?
Politically, I think I should say that at this present moment, the Nagas are neutral, are playing a neutral role.
Are they helping and assisting the Kukis in the hills?
But one thing is that we need to thank our Naga brothers that they have been praying for us. They have been sending relief materials. They are at least collecting materials for us, and they are helping in the relief centers in whatever way they can. So this is something like which is appreciated by the Kuki brothers.
We're coming to the end of this interview. I want to put something very different to you before I end. If I recall correctly, in Northern Ireland, where the Protestants and the Catholics were feuding and fighting for generations, there was a complete collapse of trust between the 2 communities. But the women of the 2 communities worked tirelessly to bridge that gap, to recreate trust. In fact, Betty Williams and May Reid Corrigan won the Nobel Peace Prize in the mid-70s for their efforts. Could Kuki women and Meitei women play a similar role in Manipur?
The incident which you talk about in Ireland, I really wish that it can happen, but I think this will be really impractical in reality.
Why?
I'll tell you why. You know the Mera Paivis. What is the role of the Mera Paivis? Mera Paivis are supposed to be they are termed as the guardian of the civil society. They are, one of their main objectives is crime against crime and injustice against women. And you know what they did? I'm not saying that there's a video footage which I have in my phone also. I can even show it to you.
But what did they do?
You know what they did? I'm not saying that they'll be Mera Paibis, but this group of women, when the violence started in Imphal Valley, they got hold of 2 Kuki young women, and they told the men folk around saying that rape them. How can you tell the men to rape you? You may be a mother, you may be a sister, you may be a daughter. How can you think of your daughter? Those 2 young Kuki women, they just gave them to the men and said, you raped them. And then, you know, after 3 days, we came to know that like one of them was killed, murdered, and then the other survived.
You're saying to me that women in Manipur, whether Kuki or Meitei, in their capacity as mothers, as wives, as sisters, as friends, cannot get together to try and do in Manipur what Betty Williams and Mairead Corrigan did in Northern Ireland? That is no longer possible in Manipur. Women can't get together as women, as mothers, as wives.
I'll just tell you the role so that you can put it yourself how impossible or like how impractical it would be, because like I said, like the violence started in Imphal Valley. Where are the Mera Paivis? They should have come out and said that the violence cannot happen against women. They have been killing the women also mercilessly.
Okay.
So, and then I'll just, on the contrary, I'll just cite one thing where in Churachandpur, there is an incident. I don't remember the date, somewhere on the 5th.
Of which month? June or May?
5th of May. 5th of May. Violence started on 3rd, and then on 5th of May, after 2 days after the violence, what they did is that the Meitei people who are settled in the Churachandpur, they were taken to the relief centers. On the way, the mob were trying to attack them. Immediately, the women folk in Churachandpur area, they formed chain and they protected these Meitei people, and they
You're saying to me, Dr. Zone, I'm deliberately interrupting you, but you're saying to me that kuki women in Churachandpur acted to defend the Meitei, but Meitei women in the valley did not act to defend the kuki. That's what you're saying?
Yeah, if you see, like...
You don't think you're being unfair?
We have not even attacked a strand of their hair. We have left them unhurt. We have not harmed them.
I have to tell you for the record that there are many accounts of the kukis, I don't know whether it's kuki men or kuki women, attacking the Meitei as well. There are many accounts of that, including a police officer called Yadav, who was clearly, according to the police, shot by what looks like a kuki sniper. It was in the papers. So there are similar stories on both sides. I have to balance it because that's what an honest journalist should do. But I'll ask you one last question. Can
I just answer to that?
Not really, because I think I don't want to make this a tutu mema, but go ahead.
No, it's not about tutu mema. This is something which we are really fed up of defending, the lies, the disinformation spread by the Meiteis.
But hang on, this was
one of the main reasons why.
Forgive me, this is police officers quoted in the papers 2 days ago who said it was a sniper or a trained shooter, if not a sniper, who attacked at clear range, killing and hitting in the neck a man called Yadav. This wasn't disinformation from the Meitei side, it was newspaper reports quoting the police or the army. It was there in the papers.
But
let's not get into that because I think it serves no purpose. You made clear that women in their role as mothers, as wives, as sisters, cannot get together with their Meitei counterparts in Manipur. What about in Delhi? Can you, as chief of the Kuki Women's Forum, meet Meitei women? Away from Manipur, can you here get together and talk and try and build trust? Or is that impossible in Delhi as well?
I don't have any close friends, Meitei friends, but I've been talking to friends who have Meitei friends and neighbors, and they said that like this violence has created a mistrust between their neighbors and their friends also, Meitei friends and neighbors. So I think the whole thing is now that everywhere, in any part of India, anywhere, these violence have really affected the liaison between the Meiteis and the Kukis.
We've reached breaking point.
Yeah.
I thank you, Dr. Zoe, for coming and speaking to me. I think, as I said in the introduction, it's very important that the voices of women in Manipur should be heard. We've done 7 or 8 interviews up till now, but they've been always with men, Kuki, Meitei, Naga. But this is the first of a 2-part series where I am deliberately talking to the women of Manipur. You were the first. Tomorrow we have Beena Lakshmi Nepram, the convener of the Northeast India Women Initiative for Peace. She's a Meitei. Maybe her view will be very different, but we do believe it's important for the women of Manipur, Kuki and Meitei, to be heard, to be listened to and heeded. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you so much.